What's up guys, Anton here at DPR. This week is all about the paint project, one that I'm super excited about. If you're ready, let's jump right into that. So we just got back from Tinley Park, NARBC last weekend. That was absolutely amazing. We had a blast, Emily and I. It was so great to see all the breeders, all the fans, all the enthusiasts of reptiles. Great community. I dearly love this community and I'm super happy that I've met some new people from overseas, in the States, a bit from everywhere. Shout out to DJ from Reptile for Centuries for this awesome t-shirt. So we're going to start with the very basic stuff. I know a lot of you have seen some paints, but for those of you that haven't, we're going to dive in a little bit on what does the paint look like. So this is a regular, this one happens to be triple het, hypo, puzzle, and paint. That's a male. By the way, that's for sale. I made 4 of them and I don't need 4 males. And this is a paint. This is actually a sentinel animal, but they're basically the exact same gene. Both paint and sentinel are heavily granite recessive morphs and they are compatible, both of them. So I've made some mixes between the two and they are 100% compatible. I don't know exactly for genetic testing if that is exactly the same gene. That's because the genetic test for paint is not yet available. But when you look at the visual features of both paint and sentinel, they're very alike. I have to say that the line of sentinel that I have is somewhat brighter and more vivid, especially as adults, than some of the paint stuff that I've seen. But this is just a preference. This is the line that I'm working with and I really like this line. So this animal here is a single gene sentinel. I'm going to refer in this video as paint just because that's where the market is kind of going. So this animal here has all the visual features that we want to see. So basically a dorsal stripe, bit broken down in some saddles on the dorsal, but you definitely have a lot more pattern on the dorsal than a regular animal. So you have that first dorsal pattern. Then obviously sentinel is a granite mutation, and what a granite mutation means is you have all those little spots inside the alien heads and a lot of pixelization, especially on the belly. Almost looks like this animal is yellow belly, but this is not a yellow belly paint, even though you have all that pixelization. So maybe sometimes it can make it a bit more complicated to identify. Other than that, you have a lot of, there you got a very feisty baby on the other side. Look at that. That is 100% feisty. So it's hard to make a video like this. Try to just, okay. Perfect. Go back to this one. So you have some really good highlights of black all along the dorsal. That goes all the way across the side of the alien heads. And you have a lot of pixelization, especially on the dorsal. You see like there's some white scales going on there and has that kind of similar alien heads all across, but there's not really a lot of holes, keyholes inside. It's more that granite look inside. So this one I shown earlier this year, but this is the Cypress paint that we made earlier this season. This is the little one with no eyes and he is thriving very well. Amazing eater, super reactive. He's just behaving the same way a regular ball python would. He's using his heat pits and his tongue as well for sensory detection. So he's really doing very well, even though he doesn't have the eyes. But this combo is definitely one that I am extremely pleased on how it turned out. So this is the paint and this is the Cypress paint. So you really see that Cypress kind of striped up even more that dorsal from the paint and really cleaned it out. You don't have as much granite look, especially on the alien heads. Really spread apart that pattern and took that pattern a lot on the sides and not so much on the dorsal, where this pattern comes all the way almost to the tip of the dorsal. This one really doesn't. I'm super excited about this look. This Cypress paint project is absolutely phenomenal, and we've pushed the boundaries this year. We've made more animals with Cypress and paint. So this is just Cypress and I managed to hit one. I did a reveal on Instagram, but this is my first time on YouTube for this little female. This is Honey Cypress yellow belly paint, and I was so blown away when I first saw this animal out of the egg. The saturation of orange that you have from the yellow belly, that black dorsal striped from Cypress, and I'm pretty sure on Honey on just how saturated and insane this animal actually turned out to be. This is probably one of my top 3 favorite hatchlings of the season. I am absolutely ecstatic about the possibilities. Based on what this animal looks like, I could swear that there's OD inside of this female, but there wasn't any OD in the pairing. So OD is an obvious choice for me, but I think also lace would be really cool. Really curious also about spot nose. I know spot nose and Cypress are highly reactive together, so that could definitely be an interesting avenue to go with, and even just something to highlight those black, like a little bit of blackhead would be really cool in there. This is by far one of my favorite paint that I've ever seen. Really a true work of art. So these next few animals came from a clutch with a lot of genetics inside. So the pairing was a orange stream, yellow belly, fire, cinnamon, double head cryptic paint to a chocolate double head hypo paint. So every paint animal from the clutch are 50% head cryptic and 50% head for hypo. Did a few testing here and there, got some results, so I'll share some with you as we go. But these animals are from that pairing. So this is what I believe to be a OD Fire Cinnamon paint. Cinnamon paints are often very reduced on the sides with a strong dorsal line. This is kind of a key feature of what we've seen in the past. This is definitely one of them. And Fire is making that nice light brown, a little bit of gray inside, and OD is giving those oranges on the side. Cinnamon obviously striping it up and making it extra dark. That is a super cool male. So this is also 50% head hypo and cryptic, so that's kind of stacked. And then I was lucky enough to hit also what I believe to be maybe the first chocolate paint, and this is a chocolate cinnamon yellow belly paint. And this one, this male actually proved out head hypo. I'm still waiting on the head cryptic result, but this is 100% head for hypo. So imagine bred that back to mom with a super chocolate hypo paint. That would be absolutely insane. So it's really interesting to see how we layer really dark stuff inside of paint, how the interaction is. You really have that dorsal line, but then the pattern is really reduced to some little heavily granited spots. And then obviously that side pattern is absolutely amazing. You really see that yellow belly shining through. And I'm kind of shocked, because if I had to guess what this animal was, I would like probably say something like a super chocolate, super asphalt type of look. Really unexpected, but I really think that adding some lighting gene inside of that would be really cool. And imagine just a hypo version of this animal, or a super chocolate hypo version, would be absolutely badass. In the history of paint and sentinel, they've been for a very long time believed to be a incomplete dominant, which means that they had a single form and a super form. And that's because some het are extremely visual, really intense, and give a lot of, you know, rich colors and intense pixelization. And I kind of think that this animal is one of them. This is a little bit of a mystery to me. So this snake coming from the same pairing. So the possible incomplete dominant genes are OD, yellow belly, fire, chocolate, cinnamon, and it could be visual paint. It's posset hypo and cryptic, and that doesn't just look like an OD yellow belly fire to me. I think that we have a case here of high strong influence of the het paint at play here. This is a male, kind of unfortunate. As a female, it would be a perfect animal to hold back. I think we have a strong influence of the het paint in there. I'd be curious though, let me know down in the comment what you think about this animal. I do have a snake to do a comparison. So this animal here is one snake that I acquired last year from Khalil at 514 Reptiles. This is a OD Fire paint, and this would be with yellow belly. Kind of doesn't make sense because you really see the paint very well there. You have that line on the dorsal, you have that granite pattern, and you don't really have any typical alien heads. This snake really has not so much of a dorsal stripe where this one does, and you don't really have that much granite. It's just some weird funky pattern all over. So I'm really leaning towards this snake not being paint, but you know, that's just such a crazy head. So this next one is also coming from the same clutch. That's a female, and this is a absolute beast of genetic. Not necessarily for the genes she's carrying, but the expression she's having. This animal is what we often refer to as a chimera, so a bit of 50-50 on two snakes. So if you look at the head, the half of the head is a regular paint, the other half is a cinnamon fire paint, and this look is shared through the dorsal completely alongside the animal, and then it turns into some spots of cinnamon fire paint and some regular paint both at the same time. You have a big mark at the towards the tail of just cinnamon fire, then you have some big marks of just paint. I think it's my first time hatching a snake with a complete head split like this. Really impressive. Imagine that as an adult sitting in your racks. That's absolutely insane. So this is just a wonder of nature, and that goes to show how crazy breeding ball pythons can be sometimes. Staying on that cinnamon paint vibes, these two animals are from different clutches, but they are from the same male, so they're carrying very similar genes. I did think when we did a egg cutting competition with Emily recently that this animal was the same as the other one, but now after shed I'm kind of rethinking my identification. So now my IDs would be cinnamon yellow belly paint and cinnamon honey yellow belly paint. It's nice to see some honey outside of Cypress where we usually see it. Honey is very similar to some of the other bell mutations like Special, Mocha, and Russo. So this is basically just highlighting the colors, making it more creamy and soft. But as far as the pattern, it's pretty much similar. So this is a female, this is a male. They will both be for sale if ever someone is interested in jumping in the paint project. These animals could be really interesting elements for the future. Another gene that I wanted to incorporate inside of my paint stuff this year was Bungo, and I was lucky enough to hit 2 of them. Unfortunately, 2 males, but that's how my season is all going this year, only males. So I'm gonna introduce you to those 2 animals, and one of them unfortunately is in shed. This is a Bungo pastel possible yellow belly paint, and I really like the way Bungo and pastel did interact together. It really created those super clean and reduced sides. And when this animal is not in shed, this is fairly orange with some nice tones of gray and yellow going through the animal. I'm kind of debating if it's yellow belly or not, but based on the neck snake, I would lean towards this one not being yellow belly. So I think it's pastel Bungo paint. But paint has so much edging on the sides that sometimes it's a little bit complicated to identify yellow belly. And then when you introduce yellow belly, you kind of oversaturate that pixelization on the sides. As you can see, those sides are just pure granite. You can barely see those little spots of pattern. There's so much pixelization that comes from the belly scales all the way on the side and then completely to that super nice dorsal that looks like a freeway. This animal turned out super cool, and there's a lot of great coloration on there, a lot of orange scales mixed with those white, yellow, and black scales. Really a nice looking snake. And then on the next steps, obviously OD is definitely my first go, but I think that imagine that OD, like if you look on the tail here, you could add all that orange coloration across the whole snake. Really like this this direction. But I think that something a bit dark would be nice, and maybe a recessive like hypo would make that snake absolutely shine. So these 2 here are going to be the last snakes of the video. These are basically 2 pastel paints with some het influences. That's why they're a little bit different. So these are from the 2nd clutch of the season. So that hatched early this year, like in January. So those animals are a little bit older. We got a pair, male and female. They were both posset clown and desert ghost. The female proved het clown, so this is the pastel paint het clown. And then the male proved het desert ghost, so pastel paint het desert ghost. Funny enough, those 2 animals were for sale at some point on Morph Market. Now that they have some size and I really see where I can take this project, I put them basically both back out of the Morph Market because I have a lot of double het DG paint breeder females. I've never been able to produce any clutches from them, but if I can and I put this male to work, my odds are really highly increased to produce that DG paint. I would love to see this, especially with pastel as a DG paint, that amount of black, that amount of pixelization, and that amount of yellow turn into desert ghost would be absolutely nuts. And then this female as a het clown. I do know that everybody hates on pastel clown, but this on its own looks really phenomenal. I still think that the contrast is great. This snake hasn't lost the yellows, hasn't lost the blacks, and it's not turning into a brown mutt snake. I really like it, even though there's pastel. So these 2 snakes are now holdbacks. That just goes to show that sometimes, you know, you can put some animals for sale on Morph Market and then at some points change your mind and decide to hold them back, especially with that size. So I'm really stoked about the paint project. Next year is going to be pushing the boundaries even more, have that OD fire paint. That's going to start breeding for me. And then I have some other females, some holdbacks that I kept from 2022 and 2021 that potentially will go for me this season. So I have some shots as like super OD paints, some Cypress spot nose paint, some pink clown, some DG paint, and maybe if we're very lucky and we hit the odds and we have a good clutch, a DG paint clown. I only have 1 female for the project. that's up to size, but that's in the plan. So I'm super stoked about this project. If you're not already into it, I do believe that paint will have its place for the future, for the long run. This just gives you a little bit of a taste of the potential of that gene. And mind me, those were all very simple combinations, 2-3 genes inside of that recessive. So when we're gonna start layering the right ones, when we understand which ones are the right ones to put in, I really think that this project is gonna take off like crazy. It gives us an amount of pixelization that we don't really have in other granite mutation. And just look at this, like this is absolutely insane. The size on that female is truly phenomenal. So I'm really stoked about it. I think that the potential is great. If you're not already into it and you want to get in, send me a DM. I could hook you up with a few animals. There's very limited availability, but it's possible. If not, you can always snooze and take it for next year. But yeah, I'm curious. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the paint project, and if you have some animals, what directions are you going to go with it? On this, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and go check Morph Market for available animals. We'll see you soon. Cheers.